Hello everyone, it's Voodoo51292, and I'm coming to you with a brand new game review, which I have not done in some time. And today I'm going to be reviewing a game that it was a highly anticipated game by a lot of people, myself included. I've been patiently waiting for this game for 3 years. It is the third installment of a very popular PlayStation 3 exclusive series. The last installment came out in 2008, and it was a very, very good game. It was met with high critical acclaim, and this game was highly anticipated, and a lot of people thought that this would be the epic conclusion to a great trilogy. And the game that we are reviewing today is Resistance 3 for the PlayStation 3. As I said, it is a PlayStation 3 exclusive. So this game has a campaign mode and a multiplayer mode. So, as I normally do for these type of games, I'm going to talk about the campaign in full, good things and bad things, and then I'm going to talk about the multiplayer in the same way, and then we'll give the game a score from 1 to 10. And if you need a refresher on how my scoring works, on what my scores actually mean, go watch the first video in the game review playlist where I break down my my rating scale in detail if you need a refresher. So, Resistance 3. The Resistance series, as I said, has been a very popular title on the PlayStation 3. And basically, the Resistance series tells the story of basically this alien virus that came to Earth and caused a massive outbreak, and basically is turning all of the humans into these monstrous-like creatures called Chimera. And basically, here's a quick recap of the first two games up until this game. So, a spoiler alert here: if you haven't played Resistance 1 or 2 and you want to play those before you play this game, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. But basically, in Resistance 1, you play as Nathan Hale, who is a U.S. Soldier, and he goes to England to help fight the Chimeran forces off in England. And he basically contracts a strain of the Chimera virus, but for some reason he's not immune to it because it does take a toll on him, but it takes a much slower toll than it does on everyone else. And you play as Nathan Hale through the first game. And in the second game, you also play as Nathan Hale, but the Chimera have now invaded the U.S., and you fight through many different locations in the U.S., and you actually become a part of a special military team called SERPA, who is basically a team made up of people who have contracted the Chimera virus. And you fight as Nathan Hale as part of SERPA across the U.S. And basically, here's the big spoiler: one of your teammates that you meet up with in SERPA, his name's Joseph Capelli, and you fight with him through Resistance 2. And at the end of Resistance 2, basically, Nathan Hale at this point has been pretty much taken over by the Chimera virus, and he's turning into a Chimera. And Joseph Capelli realizes that Hale is basically lost, and he kills Nathan Hale, shoots him right in the head. So as Resistance 3 picks up, it is definitely a different game than the other two Resistance, because you now are Joseph Capelli. You pick up and play as him, and basically you live in Oklahoma with your new wife and son in this basically this underground community. And basically the world at this point is like 80% turned into Chimera. So there's very few humans left, and the humans that are left are just all in individual little communities, villages trying to survive. And as Joseph Capelli, you and your family are with a community in Oklahoma, and basically you seem to be surviving and things seem to be fine until a former friend from Resistance 2 shows up, Dr. Malikov. And basically, I'm not going to spoil too much more, but Dr. Malikov has a job for you that he wants you to do that he thinks is going to help the situation with the Chimera, and that's the point of Resistance 3. So it's a very different feeling, first of all, than the first two. When you're military, you're part of a military operation, but in this game you are basically on your own, doing your own thing. So let's talk about the campaign a little bit, the gameplay. Let's talk about the good things and the bad things. There were a lot of good things I did like about the game, but unfortunately, there were a lot of things that I was also disappointed with. one thing that you have to understand, I'll put the box down now. One of the things you have to understand about Resistance 3 is the gameplay of Resistance 3 is a direct throwback to Resistance 1. Basically, in Resistance 1, it was one of the early PS3 titles. You had a health bar that you filled up by getting health vials instead of the regenerating health that you see in many first-person shooters today. You had a weapon wheel where basically you could carry every weapon you found in the game. And the gameplay was very different. The gameplay of Resistance 1 is basically focused on large battle scenes, large areas where there is a huge amount of enemies and there's a huge battle that goes on there for some time when you're in this one area. But there's a lot of different ways to attack it. There's buildings on some sides, so you can attack it any way you want. You can go up in buildings, you can snipe, you can stay ground level and try to take them out that way. So that was the game. Resistance 2 went much more towards what most people think is an FPS now, always moving forward in a linear path. And you could only carry 2 guns. It switched to a regenerating health meter, and it became much more of a kind of a modern shooter. Well, people expressed interest that they liked the gameplay of Resistance 1 more, so they put it back into Resistance 3. And there's some good things that they took from Resistance 1, and there's some bad things they took from Resistance 1, but right now I'm talking about the good. And what I liked about it was they did bring back the weapon wheel, which I thought was really neat. I enjoyed the weapon wheel. I enjoyed having all of the guns available to me throughout the course of the game, instead of only being able to carry 2. That was kind of a pain in the ass. And I enjoyed the revert back to Resistance 1 style battles, which is exactly what this game is. And in this game, as far as battles are concerned, you are going to be in these large areas a lot of the time, and you are going to be overloaded with enemies. That's how Resistance 1 was. That's how Resistance 3 is. You are overloaded with enemies in a big environment, and I actually enjoyed it to an extent, because it's a little bit different than your standard FPS where you're always just trying to get down a corridor or get down here, and it's smaller scale little battle areas, where in this game it's large scale, it's epic in scale. The amount of sprites that they generate on the screen, the amount of enemies is just an epic thing. And I like that. I like that reversion to Resistance 1. But there are some bad things from it, but we'll talk about those in a minute. So if you played Resistance 1 and Resistance 2, you'll know that there is a difference. If you like the gameplay of Resistance 1 a lot, you'll like the gameplay of Resistance 3 because it's very much a throwback to it. Whoa, I just threw the case on the floor. I did not mean to do that. More things I liked about the game. The graphics of this game, to be honest with you, is some of the best graphics I've seen in a game, like ever. And it is right on par with the top echelon FPSs as far as graphics are concerned this year. When you talk about Killzone 3, when you talk about Fear 3, which had amazing graphics, and yes, even Crysis 2, even though I hated the game, the graphics were unbelievable. And this game, Resistance 3, the graphics for this game are right on par, if not better, than those games. I mean, the cutscenes are beautiful in this game. It's unbelievable how detailed it is. The entire environment is very detailed. The Chimera look amazing. One of the cool things is when you shoot a Chimera on their back, because Chimera have to wear cooling packs on their back because their blood is very hot. When you shoot the cooling pack, it like sparks and explodes, and the graphics are insane. Even the fire looks real. A lot of times you have great graphics and the fire looks like shit. But no, everything in this game is highly detailed. The graphics are incredible. So I really like that about the game. Hyper-realistic graphics. It was really good. So I enjoyed that. Again, as usual with Resistance, there was a great variety of areas in the game. Again, in Resistance 3, like I said, you play in the US, and there's a wide variety of cities that you visit and a wide variety of gameplay. There's large open areas like I talked about. There are some small confined areas that you have to fight in. There are scary parts of this game, not like horrifying, but very creepy parts of the game. And there's a wide variety of levels, just checking my time here, to play in the game, and I really enjoyed that. And the plot is okay. It's nothing great. But it does have some. The story does have some twists. You know, your character Joseph Capelli and his adventures. He does run into some unexpected things, and it's pretty good. So overall, there were good things about the campaign. I thought it was, for an FPS game, I thought it was pretty good. A lot of these FPS games nowadays, their campaigns are just boring and generic. I liked the campaign of this game. I thought it was good, and I liked a lot of the things about it. Now that being said, there are a good amount of negative things to be said about the campaign as well, which I found disappointing. Oh, by the way, the length of the campaign, I would say, is probably 7 hours or so, 7 to 8 hours. So it's a good length. It's not over. It's not too long. I also don't feel like it's too short. I feel like it's a good length for the campaign. I think it fits well in itself. Now, some of the bad things about the game, okay? Remember, I did say there were some bad things that they took back from Resistance 1. They took back everything, pretty much, from Resistance 1. And the most annoying part of the entire game is their decision to bring back the health bar. It's no longer regenerating health like Resistance 2. It's back to the health bar in Resistance 1. And it is a massive pain in the ass. And the reason is because of the gameplay. Because there's these huge areas with these massive amounts of enemies, it's very difficult. And you take massive damage in the game. If you don't know that there's an enemy there, and you come around a corner, there's one, and he shoots you a few times, you lose like 25% health. You're like, what the fuck, man? I didn't even know there was a guy around the corner. I walk around the corner, 25% life gone. And it leads to a lot of cheap deaths, because you may be down to, you know, the last guy in the fight, but you only have like 2 health bars. You're running all over trying to find a health vial, and the guy shoots you and you're dead. That word came out weird. Or, you know, you think you have enough life, and then all of a sudden, a guy comes behind you, and you lose 25% life and die. And you're like, what the hell? Like, I had, you know, decent amount of life, and then I just died. Like, it's really annoying. And when you die, of course, you have to go back to the beginning of this giant level, or wherever you are, and it's a massive pain in the ass. So, I didn't die a whole hell of a lot in the game, but I died quite a bit at a few certain parts, especially towards the end of the game, where it's really overloading the health. Also, the health, sometimes it's easy to see, sometimes it's not. It really depends, because it's just like Resistance 1, it's those little green vials of whatever it is, and a lot of times, if you kill a bunch of enemies and run over their corpse, chances are one of them dropped the health vial. But usually they're spread across the level, like in corners or things like that, and sometimes you never see them, and you'll be walking around and you'll get health all of a sudden, and you'll be like, wow, I didn't even see it there, you know, I didn't even know where it was. But if you go looking for health, chances are you'll probably find it. They're usually against the walls or in the corners, or like I said, some enemies drop them. So if you go specifically looking for health, you'll probably find it. But a lot of times you walk around and you just get health and you never saw it because it's so hard to see. But that was really aggravating, and I wish that they had kept the regenerating health. There's a reason that most games do it now, because the health bar is a pain in the ass. But that was annoying. Other things annoying about the game. It's one of those games, obviously, just pretty much like everything else, when you're getting hit, your screen turns red, and it's supposed to, usually in games, it turns red on the side of the screen you're getting shot on. Not in this game. And some games, it's upside down, some games for some reason do this. I don't know why, it's really annoying. But you'll be getting shot from right in front of you, and for some reason your screen will light up red either on the left side, the right side, or sometimes around the entire screen it lights up red. And you're like, I'm not getting hit from the side, the dude's in front of me. And sometimes it's okay when you can see the guy in front of you, but when you're in this huge battle scene and you have low life and you're trying to survive and you don't know where the guy's coming from, if you're staying in the middle and you get shot and the damage and your screen turns red on the right side, you're going to think you're getting hit from over there, so you may run left, but maybe the guy is to your left shooting you and you run into him and die. And you're like, the game told me I was getting hit from the right side, and it really is annoying. And I found a lot of times when I'd be standing somewhere, there's nothing behind me but a wall, went off the level, and my back would be to the edge of the level, I would get hit, and the damage indicator would say behind me. There's a wall behind me. The guys, so that was really aggravating. Is that a lot of times you get hit and you're like, where is this dude? Like, it's telling me I'm getting hit from over here. I'm looking, he's not there, and I'm still getting hit. So that was annoying, and it wasn't well done. Another thing, the AI. The AI really varies, and what I found was actually the further you get into the game, the worse the AI becomes. And it's very strange, because it's almost like through the first half of the game they put a lot of work into the AI, and then from the second half of the game on, the AI kind of sucks. And the prime example of this, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a level in a prison, and basically I was in a room, and it was one of those things I was supposed to survive for a certain amount of time while somebody, opened the door or whatever. And what I found was they all flooded into the room, but in front of me there was this little window that was bulletproof. And I just stood behind that window, and the rest of the enemies, they just stood around and didn't do anything. They just stood around and just kind of sat there with their guns and didn't move. They didn't come in the room to kill me. They didn't do anything. You know what they did do was they started throwing Molotov cocktails, and I'm not even kidding you, they were throwing them from like the back of the room and hitting their own teammates with them. And it was fucking hilarious, and I wish I would have been able to film this playthrough, because I was laughing my ass off, because I was just standing there watching them through a bulletproof window, and they're throwing Molotov cocktails at one another and killing each other, and it was just hilarious, but it was horrible AI. Other levels in the game, the same thing would happen. Chimera would walk in front of you, and they would just keep walking right past you. They wouldn't notice you were there. They would just walk into a room completely oblivious. You gotta forgive them. Tyler just bought Borderlands and he's playing that. But you would walk into a room, a Chimera would walk by completely oblivious and wouldn't shoot you. And you could easily mow him down. So that was annoying. I gotta start wrapping it up because this is becoming way long. Another thing, there were bugs in the game. There was a level, I just beat it tonight, about half an hour ago, and towards the end of the game, one of the last levels, there was this bug where we were in a room, and there were supposed to be enemies, I guess, because I was with a companion, and he wouldn't do anything. And he was just standing there, like, aiming like there was enemies. Sometimes he'd fire at a wall. You could hear the enemies, but I walked around the room for 10 minutes, there's no enemies. And so, after about 10 minutes, enemies randomly just spawned in the room. They didn't come from anywhere, they just spawned. I killed them, and then the story progressed. So that was aggravating as well. And finally, the ending of the game is horrible. It's horrendous. There's no way that this is the last game in the series. I've seen reviews that say, well, the way the ending is, it seems like it's the last game. I don't know what ending they got. Maybe they got a different ending than I did, but nothing happens in the ending of this game. I don't mean to spoil anything, but the ending is very bland. You finish what you're supposed to do, and then the game just ends. There's no closure, there's no explanation of what happens to the world, there's no explanation of if the Chimera take over the whole planet, if the humans win. There's nothing. You do what you're supposed to do in the game, and then that's it, the game ends. And then I'm like, okay, well maybe there's a big wrap-up after the credits. So I sit there through literally almost 20 minutes of credits for this game. No secret ending, it takes you right back to the main screen. So what a disappointment that was. Horrible ending to the game. And so even though I liked the game, I think the game was pretty good, overall the game was a disappointment, because if this is the last game, then wow, they completely ruined it, because there was no ending here. There was no closure, there was no ending to the story. It was an ending to the game, but not the story, not the series. So, I don't know, maybe they're going to make more of these games? Maybe they completely fucked up and this is the last one and the ending was horrible? I don't know. But that's it for the campaign. So the campaign was good, I enjoyed it, but at the same time it was still a disappointment. I felt like Resistance 2's campaign was way better than this campaign. That's just my opinion. So let's quickly move on to the multiplayer before this video gets obnoxiously long. The multiplayer in the game, it's very standard, very basic. Basically, you it's normal FPS multiplayer. you you got team deathmatch, regular deathmatch, capture the flag. There is a mode called, I'm gonna say, chain reaction, where there's like points you have to capture. It's sort of like domination with a twist. And there's just not that great a variety in the game modes. And it's pretty much Call of Duty Resistance style, so to speak. You've got a couple of abilities. You've got kill streaks and things like that. Not that inventive. And there's two huge negatives about it. A, you need a pass to play the multiplayer, because Sony decided they were going to do it too. On the back of the instruction manual for this, there's a code that you need to put in for the multiplayer. And yeah. And then on top of that, the worst thing about the multiplayer is the frame rates. Because they didn't tone down the graphics on the multiplayer. They kept the engine the same, but the engine can't handle that amount of graphics with that amount of people online at the same time. So what happens is, every time you get in the middle of a firefight, the frame rates slow down to the point almost sometimes where the game locks up, and the next frame you're dead. And you're like, you have no idea who killed you, there's no kill cam in the game. It zooms in on the enemy who killed you, but it doesn't show you how he killed you. And you'll just be walking around, and all of a sudden, the frame rate slowed to about, showed you like a slideshow of 3 slides, and then you die. And you're like, what the hell happened? I don't even know what happened. And you'll be sitting there in the middle shooting somebody, all of a sudden the frame rates go to shit, and you just drop dead. So, yeah, the multiplayer of this game, to be honest, kind of sucks. And it's disappointing, again, because I thought the multiplayer was going to be good. They toned it down from Resistance 2 that had like 32-person multiplayer. They toned it down to 16. I thought it was going to be better, but honestly, Resistance 2's multiplayer was better. Their competitive modes were better. They had a unique cooperative mode in the multiplayer. This multiplayer is pretty bland and generic, and the frame rates go to shit every time something happens. So it kind of sucks, and there's really no need to play it, and there's definitely no need to spend $10 to get the code to activate it, because it's just not that good. So, to wrap everything up, Resistance 3, a game that I really wanted to play, have been waiting patiently for 3 years for the game. To be honest with everyone, overall, it's kind of a disappointment. Things in the game that should have been fixed, things that shouldn't be in a game in 2011, with those weird bugs, with the shitty AI on occasion, the detection marker being off, the damage indicator, I should say, being off. And a really not eventful ending at all. You think that this is Resistance 3. This was billed at least to be the conclusion. I think it was the general consensus it would be the conclusion. And it's a pretty good campaign, but the ending is just completely unsatisfying. The game just, you finally get to this point, you've accomplished what you're supposed to accomplish, you expect this great ending to wrap everything up, and you don't get it. The game just ends. It's like, good job, you did it, game's over. By the way, as you can see, this game is compatible with the PlayStation Move. Don't play it with the PlayStation Move. I'm just telling you, PlayStation Move sucks ass. I don't need to own one to tell you that. Play it with the gamepad. That's all I can tell you. So, overall, sort of a disappointment. The multiplayer just kind of sucks, to be honest. It's not fun. When you're walking around and you don't know how you die or why you die, the frame rates just plummet and you just you just drop dead. So, overall, I will say that there is co-op in the game, which is pretty cool. But now I have to hunker down and give the game a final score here. And it's unfortunate, but to be honest, I can't give Resistance 3 any more than a 7. It's a good game, but it's not great. It's, for an FPS campaign, for the plot and the epicness of it and the graphics, which are stunning, yeah, it's a pretty good game. But when you have annoying stuff like the health bar, you have annoying stuff like bugs, you have shitty AI that stand there and don't attack you and kill each other, and an ending that's extremely anticlimactic and doesn't wrap up anything with the series at all. It finishes the game, but it doesn't finish the series by any means. There's no cliffhanger, there's no closure, there's nothing. And then there's really no replayability value because the multiplayer kind of sucks. So I can't give the game any more than a 7. It's above average. It definitely is. It's a fun game to play. I definitely recommend you play the game. But $60 purchase tag? I don't think so. I don't think this game is worth $60. The campaign is good, but the multiplayer is not. And the campaign, even though it is good, has a lot of problems. And as far as a Resistance game, it's disappointing. As a standalone game, it's pretty good. But as a Resistance game, it's just not as good as the last two. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm honest. I am sort of a Resistance fanboy, but the game just wasn't that good. Let me rephrase it. It was good. It wasn't great. I'll say that. It was good. It was a fun campaign. I enjoyed playing it, but it wasn't great. And I think it was a step back for the series instead of a step forward. And if this is the last game, then they really did a shitty job of ending it because there was no ending. So anyway, that's it. I apologize for this long review. I kind of let myself ramble on and kind of lost track of time there. But that's it. Resistance 3 gets a 7. Not as good a game as I thought, but still a pretty decent game if you want to give it a weekend rental. Just do not spend the $10 on the multiplayer patch. You will hate yourself. Okay? So thanks for watching. Voodoo File 1292. And if you're a PS3 owner, rent the game. Play it. You'll probably enjoy it. And it'll only cost you about $10. And there you go. Okay? So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with my next game review.